Good morning, sir.
Arising out of a mutual agreement. Of the above three terms, Islamic law relating to business aqd, generally deals with ahad, wada, and aqd. Islamic financial institutions presently enter into promises in order in a number of transactions, some of which are murabaha, sale and leaseback, diminishing sharika. So these three are actually examples of ahad or promise. So in these kinds of transactions, some kind of promise from one of the parties. Ahad is unilateral or promise is a unilateral, where one single party promises to undertake something or do something and creates liability on him or her. So that is called ahad or wada. So one of the transactions that is very popular in Islamic banking, that is murabaha. And murabaha is used for financing of cars, financing of home, financing of other assets like machinery. So what happens in murabaha? First, a person approaches a bank and says that I want to purchase something and specifies that. Then, uh, then bank purchases that item from the market and sells that item to that customer on a cost plus basis. So if the bank has purchased that machinery on 100 rupee, so it will sell it to the customer with 100 plus some profit margin like 120 or 150. So this is called murabaha. So in murabaha, promise is involved because once a person approaches the bank and submits his request that I am interested in purchasing, I'm interested in buying something. So he is kind of promising to the bank that if you will sell me such and such goods at such and such price, I will surely buy that product or I will buy that item from you. So murabaha also involves uh, wada or promise. So because once a customer approaches the bank and requests for financing some assets, basically he is promising that if the bank will purchase that certain item from the market and then that customer will uh, purchase that item from the bank. So promise is involved in murabaha contract also. And another contract that is Sharia compliant is sale and lease back. This also involves wa'da or promise because uh, uh, one party sells, for example, one party sells a property to another party, and then after that sale agreement, a lease agreement is also entered into. The same person who purchased that item or that property leases back that property to the seller. So this kind of transaction is known as sale and lease back, and sale and lease back also involves promise. So sale and lease back is allowed subject to the fulfillment of certain conditions, and in this transaction, uh, promise is crucial ingredient. So the buyer actually is promising that after buying it, I will lease it back to you or back to the seller. So this transaction is known as sale and lease back, and promise is part of this contract also. Another kind of financing tool that is available in Islamic banking contracts is diminishing musharaka. So what happens in this? This is also a tool for financing of assets like home, like car. So what happens is that a person approaches a bank and tells the bank that I am interested in purchasing such and such asset, and certain some of the then some of the amount is contributed by that customer, and the rest is contributed by the bank. So say for example 10% of the value of that asset is contributed by the buyer or the customer, and 90% of the price is paid by the bank. So the share, so both the bank and the person or the buyer become the owner of that asset in the ratio of 90:1 or 9:1. And when and then the customer promises that I will purchase the share of the bank in that asset from the bank from time to time. So from every month, the person will pay some amount of money, or periodically, maybe quarterly also. And after each payment, the share ratio, the ownership ratio of the bank will reduce, and the ownership ratio of the customer will increase. So after every payment, so basically he is paying the ownership of the bank in that asset. He is buying the ownership of the bank from bank in that asset. So this kind of transaction is known as diminishing musharaka. Musharaka means partnership. Musharaka means partnership. So in partnership, the bank's partnership or the ratio of the bank's partnership reduces after each payment from the side of the customer or from the side of the buyer. So this kind of transaction is known as diminishing musharaka. So in diminishing musharaka, promise is involved because the person who is availing this kind of financing from the Islamic bank from an Islamic bank is actually promising that I will pay or I will buy back the share of or the partnership interest of the bank in that asset from the bank, and after the last payment, uh, the customer will become 100% owner of the asset. So this is called diminishing musharaka, and in diminishing musharaka, the buyer is actually a promiser also, because he is promising to purchase the partnership ratio, the partnership, the ownership of the bank in the particular asset. Aqd is most crucial tool for Islamic banks for both deposit and asset sides. The concept of bank, the concept of bank, what is the main job of a bank? The main job of the bank is to accept deposits and grant loans. This is the main job or main activity of a bank. And contract is crucial on both sides. When a bank accepts deposit, it's a kind of contract. And when a bank lends money or invests money, it's also a kind of contract. And these are different kinds of contracts. They enter into amana, qarz hasana, that is qarz loan, shirka means partnership, wakala is agency contracts. So normally deposit accounts are structured like wakala accounts, and then by ijara is contract, ujra is fees, shirka is again partnership, wakala again it is repeating. Wakala is agency, kafala is guaranteeship. So guaranteeship. So when one person guarantees another person something, that is called kafala. And wakala is agency, agent principal relationship, that is known as wakala. So all of these kinds of contracts, whether it is shirka or wakala or kafala or ijara, that is lease contract, or bay, that is purchase and sell, All these involves contracts. These are some of the broad rules for contract to be valid. So one basic rule that should not be violated is free mutual consent. So all parties to the contract should be free to express their consent to the conditions of that contract. If the consent is not free, it is not a valid consent. So consent should be free. And at the same time, the consent of a minor is not acceptable. The person should be same, should be of legal age. And if the person is not of legal age, then his agent or his vakil should express uh, his or her free mutual consent. So mutual consent is very integral to any contract. So if mutual consent is not there, that particular aqd cannot be a valid aqd. Or valid, the word for valid in Arabic is sahih. So as for the validity of a contract, mutual consent or and free mutual consent is very crucial. All transactions, in order to be valid and enforceable, must be based on free mutual consent of the parties. Consent obtained through operation, fraud, misperception renders a contract invalid as per Islamic law. So, if the consent is obtained through operation or through misperception or manipulation or through fraud, so this will render the contract as invalid or batil. So, aqde batil, aqde sahih. Batil means invalid contract and aqde sahih means valid contract. Valid contract, sahih, aqde sahih. And batil contract means invalid contracts. So if there is no free mutual consent, the contract will be batil, will be invalid. Then another thing that a contract should be free from is prohibition of gharar. So all contracts must be free from excessive uncertainty. Excessive uncertainty, as we have already you know that if some terms and conditions have not been defined properly, this leads to uncertainty, and this leads to ambiguity in the transaction that is prohibited. So basically, the ambiguity could be related to the subject matter of the contract, and maybe with the price of the contract, with the guarantee. For example, sometimes the seller guarantees something, and he is not specifying the kind and nature of the guarantee. Sometimes the mode of delivery, time of delivery is also not specified. So these unspecified terms lead to excessive uncertainty, and this may render uh, a contract invalid or batil. So all valid contracts must be free from excessive uncertainty, gharar, about the subject matter or the consideration, that is price, given in exchange. Gharar conveys the meaning of uncertainty about the ultimate outcome of the contract, which may lead to dispute and litigation. So what will happen if some terms and conditions in a contracts are not defined properly? This will lead to ambiguity and dispute among the parties that are involved in the transaction. So examples of transactions based on whether are the sale of fish in water, fruits of trees at the beginning of the season when their quality cannot be established. So if the fruit has not ripened, the quality of the fruits cannot be judged. So gharar is involved in such kind of transactions. The future sale of not fully defined or specified products of a factory which is still under construction. So if the product is still under construction and is not fully defined and specified, so the sale of such products is involves gharar. Another example relevant example of avoiding uncertainty is that of the sale of debt. Sale of debt is also not allowed on the same logic, on the same rationale, that it is uncertain that the debt will be recovered. So if I sell the debt to some other person and I tell him that please recover my debt from that person, so it is not, gharar is involved because the person who owes money may not pay, and recovery is uncertain. So that is why sale of debt is not allowed on the same logic. Other examples of gharar-based invalid transaction are short selling of shares. Short selling of shares means when you sell something which you don't own, that is called short selling. So short selling is also not allowed on the same logic that when you don't own something, you cannot sell that thing. The sale of conventional derivatives and the insurance business. Insurance business also involves a lot of gharar, and conventional derivatives, that is options and futures, also involve sometimes types of gharar. Then
So options and which are considered as haram, or what can?
Abdullah, you are asking.
Sir, I'm asking that futures on option contracts are haram, or we should avoid them. What does it?
Majority of the scholars consider them as haram, and the logic that they provide for its prohibition is gharar, the involvement of gharar, as well as masir. Masir, masir means the gambling, the element of gambling.
Yes, sir.
So futures and options involve a lot of gambling because uh, there are several elements. One of the element, let me just mention here, is leverage. You know, leverage. You have
Yes,
100
sir.
rupee.
Yes, sir. I
You
understand
have,
on leverage.
yes. So you have 100 rupee in your account, but you can take uh,
At
1000
10
rupee position. If the leverage provided is 10x, then out of 100 rupee you can take a position of 1000 rupee. So if the underlying asset moves by 1%, your profit and loss will move by 100%. So so your profits, and both your profits and your losses are amplified by, if you are using leverage, then both your profits and your losses are amplified. And this is the feature of gambling. This is the feature of casino. This is the
Uh,
feature that you want to become.
therefore, so intraday is also haram because it also have leverage.
Intraday also involves leverage, but this is a gray area as far as intraday is concerned. This is
Okay.
a gray area. Some allow it, but even if it is allowed, it is not as something which is desirable. It should be avoided.
Okay, sir. Sir, I have one more question.
Yes,
Yes, the short selling is also not good. So also haram.
yes, short selling, because futures involves short selling, and short selling is not allowed.
Okay, sir. Okay. Thank you, sir.
And the logic is that you cannot sell something which you don't own. That is gharar. So on the basis of gharar, short selling is not allowed. But apart from gharar, the element of masir is also there. What I will encourage you to look at the logic, look at the rationale instead of just looking at the ruling. Just try to look at their logic, what logic they are using. These are three prohibitions, that is riba, masir, and gharar. And there are so these, how these three things are involved in futures and options. Think about that, and after thinking, if you think that the element of gharar is there, the element of masir is there, or riba is there, then it will be prohibited. Sharia is not some rocket science. The things which are prohibited are very clear, and there are some gray areas. But as far as the red lines and boundaries are concerned, that is very clear. For example, gharar is very clear, masir is clear, and riba is very clear. And we are talking about broad rules for the validity of muamalat and so avoiding riba. So a contract should be free from riba also. In the conventional sense, the cost of funds amounts to riba, and they have to make profit by way of pricing the goods or usufruct of assets and not by lending funds. Then Qimar and Maisir, you already know. So it is also not allowed. It's a zero-sum game. So one of the main feature of Qimar and Maisir is that it is a zero-sum game. Zero-sum game means one person's profit is another person's profit. One person's loss is another person's profit, or vice versa. So this is also the feature of Maisir and Gharar, and contracts must be free from both riba and Qimar and Maisir. And as far as the contracts are concerned, uh, these are some basic rules that should not be violated. And prohibition of two mutually contingent contracts. Two mutually contingent and inconsistent contracts have been prohibited by the Order. This refers to the sale of two articles in such a way that one who intends to purchase an article is obliged to purchase the other also at any given price. And combining two contracts which are based on, say, for example, if you sell this to me, I will sell this to you. This has been prohibited. I mean, a contract should be separate from other contracts. Every contract should be free from other contracts. So I cannot tell you that if you purchase this item from me, I will grant loan to you. So I am combining my loan agreement to your purchase contract. So this will amount to benefiting from a loan contract, which is riba. So riba does not mean only money. Riba means benefiting from loan contract. So if I say to you that if you purchase this item from me, I will grant loan to you. So this will be equal to benefiting from loan, which is prohibited. Another example is the sale of a single article for two prices when one of the prices is not finally stipulated at the time of the execution of the sale. Then contingent sale, combining sale and lending in one contract. So sale and lending in one contract should not be combined uh, in one contract. Both every contract should be separate. It should not be based on some other contract, conditioned on some other contract. Then you already are aware of the Maqasid al-Sharia. These are some broad aims and objectives of the Sharia. For example, justice. For example, truth. For example, harmony in the society. For example, the protection of wealth, protection of property and wealth, uh, safety of body, Jan, Mal, Izzat, all these things, protection and development of these things. So these are some of the maqasid or aims of the Sharia. And the contracts should be in conformity or should be consistent with the broad maqasid al-Sharia. So if the nature of a transaction is such that it is in violation to the maqasid al-Sharia, then it should not be permissible. So any contract transaction that militates against any of these objectives is invalid in Sharia. It is quite obvious that the rights of fellow beings have to be honored in respect of all transactions. The rights of Allah in Sharia also refers to everything that involves the benefit of the community at large. In this sense, they correspond with public rights in modern law. Therefore, any contract should not be against the benefits of the public at large. Maslaha mafsada, there is concept of maslaha and mafsada. So anything that is beneficial to the society is desirable from Sharia point of view, and anything that is harmful to the society and harmful to the people, to the public, is not desirable from Sharia point of view. So we have to analyze some kinds of, if I mean some transactions from this point of view also, whether this is desirable, this is beneficial to the society, or this is harmful. Every beneficial thing is desirable, and it is liked by the God, it is liked by the Allah. And if it is harmful to the society, and if it is harmful to the people, it is not uh, liked by Allah. It is, disliked by the Allah. Another concept that is profits with liability. So this principle states that a person is entitled to profit only when he bears the risk of loss. So profit and loss sharing is also a very integral concept, that a person is entitled to the profit only if he is also liable to the losses. If he is not ready to bear the risk, he should not be entitled for the profits. It operates in a number of contracts, such as the contract of sale, hire, or partnership. Any excess over and above the principal sum paid to the creditor by the debtor is prohibited, because the creditor does not bear any business risk with regard to the amount lent. Then Ibaha al-Asliya, that we have discussed in the first unit, the principle of general permissibility, that we have to assume that all kinds of transactions are allowed, and only if some if some prohibited things are present, which are expressly and clearly prohibited in Quran and Hadith, only then we will declare some transaction as prohibited. Otherwise, the default mode of all transactions is permissible. Uh, uh, so we don't need proof for permissibility. We need proof for impermissibility. This is the takeaway. I have to provide evidence if I think something is impermissible. But to declare something permissible, I don't need to provide any evidence. This rule is called the general rule of permissibility. Contracts can be classified with respect to a number of perspectives, with respect to validity or otherwise, as per Sharia rules. Jurists in general divide contracts into two types. So on the basis of permissibility or the validity, contracts can be divided into two types: valid and invalid. Valid contracts are known as sahih, aqd sahih, and invalid contracts are called aqd batil. Aqd batil. Aqd batil means invalid contracts. So this is two broad classification of contracts. So some contracts are valid or sahih, and some contracts are invalid contracts. So if the basic conditions that have been mentioned, for example, mutual consent, for example, mutual and free consent, two parties, offer and acceptance, stipulation of the price, stipulation of the subject, correct subject of the contract, all these things. So if these things are not defined, so the contract will be invalid. So the basic things have to be defined, which are the basic elements have to be proper in place. Otherwise, the contract will be invalid. A valid contract is one that satisfies all of its conditions, while an invalid contract is one in which one or more conditions for legality are valid. So if the basic element of contract is missing and has not been defined, for example, offer and acceptance. There is no offer. Somebody has not offered to sell something to me, and I am just accepting. He has not made me an offer, and I am accepting. So how can this be a valid contract? So there should be valid offer. There should be valid acceptance, and price and the thing has to be defined. Mutual consent should be there. There should not be any coercion. There should not be any ambiguity. related with the other things that are relevant in that particular contract. So this is one classification, that is valid and invalid, Sahih and Batil. As far as Hanafis are concerned, uh, they classify contracts into three categories. The first category is same, that is valid contract, and the last category is also same, that is Batil or invalid contract. And they have one more category that is in between Batil and Sahih, and they call it voidable and defective uh, fasid contracts. And valid contracts means that satisfies all conditions. Void contracts means uh, which violates some basic conditions, that is void contract. And in between there is one more type of contracts that is called in between there is one more type of contract that is called facet contract. And what is that? Facet contracts means there is some defect in that transaction. For example, if price has not been mentioned, and so there is defect, so this defect can be rectified. This defect can be rectified. So if the defect has been rectified and free mutual consent and all these things are there, then the contract will become valid. And if the defect is still there, then it will not be valid. So this is one more category. So if the defect is minor, it is rectifiable. If the defect is major, it is not rectifiable. For example, the subject matter is something which is impermissible. For example, wine. Sale of wine is not allowed. So sale of wine is not allowed. So this sale will be a batil sale, or this will be an invalid contract because it involves something which is clearly prohibited. That is sale of wine. So this will be a batil contract or invalid contract or void contract. So because the thing that the matter is very serious, but sometimes the matter is not very serious and can be rectified. And the example is, for example, the seller has not mentioned the price, but this once he will mention the price and the buyer will express his agreement to that price, then this defective contract will become a valid contract. So in between batil and sahih, as per Hanafi scholars, there is one more category that is defective. So and defective and voidable and facet contracts are not will not be applied without rectification. First, they will be rectified, then they will be executed. Thus, they divide the void contracts into defective, regular, and invalid categories. So the first category is a valid contract or aqd sahih. Aqd sahih. Sahih means valid. The validity of any contract depends on the legality or the illegality of the subject matter. The subject matter should be legal. That is, also a basic condition. The existence and precise determination of the subject matter. The subject matter should be, in existence and should be defined properly, should be determined and specified properly. Delivery or the ability to deliver the subject matter without involvement of excessive uncertainty. The seller must be able to deliver that product and must possess that subject matter, and it should not involve excessive uncertainty. And precise determination of the price. The price should also be determined. A valid contract is one which is in accordance with Islamic law, both as regard to its asl and its wasf. Asl means fundamental component, that is the free consent, two parties, offer and acceptance. These are fundamental components of contract. So a valid contract should be in accordance with the fundamental components of the contract also, and some ancillary characteristics that are not very fundamental but external to the contract. So when a contract is valid and is in accordance with the fundamental components also, and some ancillary and accessory circumstances are also valid and good, that kind of contract is known as valid contract. So a contract is deemed valid when all elements of the contract, from offer and acceptance, the subject matter, the contracting parties, are found to be in order, the conditions of each element have been met, and it is free from external prohibited activities like riba and gharar. So when the contract is valid, both internal and external means things which are prohibited like riba and gharar, the contract is free from riba and gharar, then the contract will be called valid contract. Aisha Khan, is contract farming also not allowed because the quantity of the crops cannot be determined beforehand? Aisha, it is allowed and it is salam and istisna. There is concept of salam and istisna, buying and purchasing something which is not existent. A separate kind of contract is there, and there are details to that contract. But the short answer is that it is allowed. So form of contract, these things we have already discussed. Two parties with same age and maturity, offer and acceptance, existence of ijab until the issuance of qabul, which means that if somebody has offered and before acceptance he has ended his offer, so the acceptance will not be valid, because at the time of acceptance the offer should be open, otherwise the acceptance will not be valid. Subject matter must be permissible and in existence, deliverable and known. Petty purchases and day-to-day purchases where the offer and acceptance are implied are exempted. One classification of contracts is nafiz and mawquf. Nafiz means effective, applicable. Mawquf means suspended. So if there is some defect in a particular contract, that contract will not be effective. It will be suspended. When the error or when the defect in the contract is rectified, then it will become effective. So this is these are two terminologies, nafiz and mawquf. Nafiz means effective. When all elements are in order, that contract is called nafiz, aqd nafiz. And when there is some defect in the contract, that contract is called suspended contract or mawquf, aqd mawquf. So suspended till the cause of suspension is removed. Example, lack of authority of the party agent has no proper authority from the principal. So if the agent has not taken proper permission from the principal, the actual owner of the asset, and is trying to sell, so once he will take permission from the principal, the sale will become effective. Otherwise, the sale will be suspended or mawquf. So this is example of mawquf or suspended sale, suspended contract. Rights of a third party like mortgaged house. So if there is some rights of third parties is involved, one house has been put on mortgage. You have to take a loan from bank by putting your house on mortgage, and you are trying to sell that house. So it is not allowed, because there is a third party involved. And once the third party allows you to sell, only then you can sell that property or house. This is another example of suspended or mawquf, aqd mawquf. Another classification of contract is binding and non-binding. The binding contracts are called lazim, aqd lazim, And non-binding contracts are called, non-binding contracts are known as ghair lazim. Ghair means non-binding. Lazim means binding. Ghair lazim means non-binding. So sometimes what happens, one of the party has taken an option. So one party says that I am buying this from you, but I have the option to return it back to you. So sometimes this option is imbibed in the contract. So in Arabic, that this option is called khiyar al-shart, khiyaru shart. So when khiyaru shart is involved, that is a lazim contract is one in which none of the parties has the unilateral right to revoke without the consent of the other, unless an option, that is khiyaru shart, has been granted to a party by virtue of which the right to revoke can be exercised. So sometimes one party enjoys the right to revoke, and if such right has not been granted to any party, then the only way to declare a contract non-binding is that if both agree again to declare that contract as ghair lazim or non-binding. Otherwise, the normal mode of every contract is that it is binding. Examples of non-binding contracts are wakala, agency. So if I have one agent, so I will generally give him general permission that okay, sell, you are my agent and sell this asset that I own. So actually, uh, so this kind of wakala or agency contracts are non-binding. So my agent may or may not sell that asset. It is not binding. So the contract of agency is not binding. Similarly, kafala means guarantee or suretyship, shirka, partnership. An option, that is khiyaru shart, stipulated in the contract prevents it from becoming lazim until the time of khiyar is over. So if I have taken, stipulated time from the seller that within this time I can return it back to you, and that time is over, then that contract becomes binding contract. And before that, it is non-binding. Then the second category is fasid contract, which is a contract that is which has some defect in it, and that defect can be rectified. And if that defect is rectified, then that voidable contract will become a valid contract. So this is the concept of fasid contracts or voidable contract. A contract that is legal in its asl, it has all the elements of a contract, but it is not legal in its wasf or subsidiary with respect to external or non-essential attributes of the contract will not necessarily be violated, will be void. Rather, it will be voidable or fasid and can be regularized and validated by removing the cause of error. As far as other scholars are concerned, say for example, Shafi'i and Hanbali, they have only two categories, that is Sahih and Batil. And if there is something which is not defined, then as per Imam Shafi'i and Imam Maliki, it will be termed as Batil. But as per Imam Abu Hanifa and Hanafi school of thought, they say that if the defect is minor, and rectifiable, then rectify that defect and the contract will become valid. There is no need to re-execute the contract. Just rectify that error, rectify that defect, and the contract will become valid. Lack of pertinent information is called gharar or jahl, related to the subject matter, price, time of delivery, guarantee. So all these things are examples of gharar. So say for example, if the currency has not been mentioned, that I'm selling it to you in 100, in 100 what? In 100 dollar or 100 rupee. So that is gharar. So once the seller will define uh, the price exactly, the time and delivery, and the subject matter, and if there is he's providing any type of guarantee, etc. So the nature of the guarantee, all these things should be defined and specified properly. And if it has not been specified, there is defect in the contract, and until unless that defect is rectified, the contract will not be valid, will be termed as voidable and fasid contract. A voidable contract must be revoked without the consent of either party. Therefore, no rights and obligations arise. However, if the cause of defect or irregularity is removed, the contract becomes valid. The existence of invalid condition also makes a contract fasid. And what is invalid condition? As per Hanafi school, a condition that is neither consistent with the nature of the contract, nor endorsed by the textual authority, nor admitted by customary practice. So customary practice has also, importance. The example of invalid condition is tying a loan agreement with a sale contract. So a sale contract or a sales contract should be separate from a loan contract. And if we are combining a loan contract with a sales contract, this amounts to extracting profit from loan, which is riba. If riba is involved in a particular contract, that contract will be called a batil contract as per Shafi'i and Hanbali school of thought. But as far as Hanafi school of thought is concerned, that contract will be a fasid contract. And if the element of riba is removed from that contract will become valid. However, Hanafi school holds that riba does not make a contract void. Rather, it makes it fasid and hence rectifiable. So it is rectifiable. So if there is a loan-based transaction between two parties, it will be, fasid as per the Imam Abu Hanifa. And if the element of riba is removed from that transaction, the rest of the loan transaction will remain valid. This will become a valid contract. The third category of contracts is void contracts or invalid contracts. Void and invalid, these are both interchangeable words, void, invalid. And the Arabic word is batil contracts or invalid contracts. Contracts that do not fulfill the conditions. For example, there is no free consent, there is no valid offer and acceptance, the subject matter is not there, is not in existence itself, etc. So these are basic fundamental things that should be there in a contract and which are non-existent. So even if one of the things which is very important and fundamental to the contracts are missing, that contract will become a batil contract. Contracts that do not fulfill the conditions relating to offer and acceptance, subject matter, consideration and possession or delivery or involve some illegal external attributes are considered void. In other words, if major conditions relating to the form of the contract, for example, acceptance does not conform to the offer or the offer does not exist at the time of acceptance, etc. Parties to the contract, sane and mature. Parties to the contracts are not, sane and mature. Again, it will become a batil contract. Possession and deliverability of the subject matter are not fulfilled. The contract will become batil. Example, absolute uncertainty. Sale of milk is still not milk. Sales with unknown price. Sales with unknown price. Contracts actuated by fraud. Fraud means misrepresentation. Maybe, coercion may also be involved, consent by coercion. A batil contract does not give rise to any right. A void sale contract does not cause any transfer of ownership. The seller therefore refund the price while the buyer has to return the purchase asset. Re-execution of the contract should be made from the beginning if the parties want to proceed with the transaction. So since the defect is very major and so the re-execution of the contract is required. Simply rectification will not be sufficient. If the item is clearly prohibited by Sharia, such as pork, wine, or other impure items, the counter value of such items must be channeled to charity and public benefit and not to the original owner. Re-execution cannot be made. So if the system, in Islamic system, if some prohibited items have been purchased and sold, and so the money that is recovered from this transaction has to be channeled for public benefit and charity, and it should not be returned back to the original owner of that money. Some of you have not submitted the assignment. I have just checked today, and kindly submit that because I have to finalize the internal marks. And as far as internal marks is concerned, I will do one more thing. I will give you one link for MCQ and the schedule for that MCQ and the coverage of that MCQ. I will communicate it to you, but it will be there in the next week, I think.
I have a question.
Yes, Nidal, please. Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. Sir, if
Nidal, please type your question in the chat box because you are not audible. Please type your question in the chat box.
It appeared to be valid at the initial stage.
Your voice is not clear, Nidal. Please
It was
type your
made.
question in the
And
chat box.
Was
If you want to study them in detail, the book that I have sent you contains these topics, and I will send you one more book that contains these topics in detail. Okay, thank you very much for joining this class. Thank you very much.